Berlin didn't explode like Paris. It didn't choke like Manchester. It strained. By the early 1800s, this city felt tight in a way that made people uneasy, not because it was collapsing, but because it was outgrowing itself. The streets were crowded. The army was growing. The bureaucracy multiplied. And Berlin hadn't yet learned how to stretch. This was Berlin, a city about to discover that expansion isn't just about land. It's about power. At the start of the 19th century, Berlin is not yet a world capital. It's administrative, disciplined, functional, a Prussian city built around order, hierarchy, and obedience. Soldiers move through its streets as naturally as civilians. Government offices dominate the urban core. Rules matter here, efficiency matters, appearance matters less than control. Berlin doesn't impress. It organizes. But that organization has limits. As Prussia grows stronger, Berlin absorbs the pressure. Population increases. Military infrastructure expands. Clerks, engineers, and workers pour in. Housing tightens. Streets clog. Entire neighborhoods press against boundaries never designed to flex. The city's old walls, once symbols of protection, become obstacles. And Berlin begins to feel boxed in by its own success. Industry creeps closer, workshops multiply, railways approach the outskirts, smoke appears where fields once were. The city senses opportunity, but also risk. Because expansion requires permission. And permission requires planning. Unlike other cities, Berlin doesn't grow chaotically. It pauses, studies, measures, draws lines on paper before moving a brick. This is where Berlin becomes different. Officials don't ask if the city will expand. They ask how to control the expansion. Urban planning becomes a tool of governance. Streets are designed wide enough for movement of people, goods, and troops. Housing is organized by class. Infrastructure is mapped long before residents arrive. Nothing is accidental. But control creates tension. Workers crowd into cheaper districts. Living conditions worsen before they improve. The city stretches unevenly. Some areas modernize fast, others lag behind. Disparity grows quietly. Berlin notices but prioritizes order over comfort. Because Prussia's strength depends on reliability, the city begins reshaping itself physically to match its political ambitions. Administrative buildings grow larger. Transport networks tighten. The idea of a greater Berlin forms, not yet real, but inevitable. Still, there's hesitation. Expansion costs money. It invites instability. It forces the city to manage people who don't naturally conform to Prussian discipline. And then history intervenes. Wars reshape Europe, borders shift, power consolidates, Prussia emerges stronger, and Berlin is suddenly expected to act like a capital, not a provincial command center. The pressure intensifies. The city cannot remain small. But growing too fast risks losing control. So Berlin delays. Plans pile up, debates drag on. Officials argue over street widths, zoning, housing density, and sanitation. Every decision feels permanent because it is. This isn't just urban growth. It's statecraft in stone. By mid-century, Berlin stands at a threshold. Too big to remain confined. Too cautious to expand freely. And the people feel it. Crowding worsens, work intensifies, social divides sharpen, new ideas circulate about representation, rights, and the role of the state. Berlin senses unrest forming in spaces not yet built. And the city realizes something unsettling. If it doesn't design its future carefully, someone else will force it. Because Berlin will finally break outward. Walls come down. Districts are absorbed. And expansion becomes a weapon, used to shape society, power, and identity in ways no one fully anticipates. When Berlin finally expanded, it didn't do it impulsively. It did it deliberately. Walls were dismantled, borders blurred. Entire surrounding villages and fields were absorbed into the growing city. On maps, it looked like progress. On the ground, it felt like reclassification. Berlin wasn't just getting bigger. It was reorganizing people. New districts were laid out with intention. Wide boulevards allowed movement, fast movement. Rail lines connected industrial zones to administrative centers. Housing blocks rose quickly, packed tightly, designed to be efficient rather than humane. This wasn't neglect. It was policy. The expanding city separated functions the way the state separated roles. Workers lived here, officials lived there, industry stayed over there. Order flowed outward from the center like a diagram made real. Berlin believed a planned city could prevent unrest. But planning doesn't erase pressure, it redistributes it. As factories multiplied, labor followed. Entire working-class neighborhoods formed almost overnight. Conditions lagged behind growth. Overcrowding returned, disease spread. Rent climbed faster than wages. The city recorded all of it and adjusted nothing at first. Because Berlin's priority wasn't comfort. It was predictability. This is where expansion revealed its true purpose. A city built this way could be monitored, controlled, policed. Streets were wide enough for troops. Districts were defined clearly. Movement could be tracked. Protest could be contained. Berlin wasn't preparing for celebration. It was preparing for scale. By the late 1800s, the city had transformed completely. What had once been a compact Prussian capital was now a sprawling, complex urban system. Population surged, industry roared, bureaucracy thickened. And with it came contradiction. Berlin became modern, yet rigid. Powerful, yet anxious. Expansive, yet deeply managed. New ideas circulated through cafes, factories, and universities. Workers demanded representation. Political movements formed. The city buzzed with possibility and surveillance. Berlin responded the way it always had. With structure, reforms were calculated, policing expanded, administration tightened. The city absorbed dissent the same way it absorbed land, by reorganizing it. This worked. For a time. Because expansion delayed crisis. It created space. It diffused pressure. It made Berlin feel like a city moving forward rather than one standing still. But forward motion can be deceptive. By the end of the century, Berlin had mastered growth, but not harmony. Social divisions were now embedded in geography. Inequality wasn't accidental, it was mapped. The city functioned, but it functioned with tension built into its design. And that tension didn't disappear. It waited. Berlin in the 1800s teaches a quiet lesson. Expansion doesn't automatically mean freedom. Planning doesn't guarantee stability. Growth can be used to extend control, not loosen it. This city learned how to stretch without breaking, but in doing so, it hardened itself. Streets became tools, districts became categories, people became units within a system designed to scale. Berlin didn't grow randomly. It grew intentionally. And intention leaves fingerprints. The modern metropolis that emerged here carried forward the logic of its expansion: order first, people second, efficiency over empathy, structure over spontaneity. Berlin became a city capable of enormous power, but also enormous strain. And the future would test whether a city designed to manage pressure could survive when pressure stopped behaving predictably. If you want history that doesn't just show cities growing, but explains how growth itself becomes power, subscribe. This channel explores moments when streets, borders, and plans quietly shape the world we inherited, often without asking the people inside them. More cities. More centuries. More stories where expansion wasn't just growth. It was strategy.